everybody. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to talk about Power BI and the best way to make some beautiful dashboards in your environment. So as I said, I'm Jennifer Johnson. I work for Iowa State University, and I'm a systems analyst here where we work on our Jamf Pro infrastructure here at Iowa State. I'm going to talk about today an introduction and getting started on using Power BI with Jamf, and then transforming your data that comes in from Jamf Pro, some visualizations, and then how to publish and share these dashboards. So, brief introduction. Like I said, Jennifer Johnson. I work here at Iowa State. We are a highly distributed campus here in Ames, Iowa. We have roughly 50 sites, and they're all in one single Jamf Pro instance. That means that we have individual site admins that manage each one of these sites. And we have a lot of need for understanding our environment here on campus, and as well as a need to share it with others. So that's why we or at least why I got started on trying to figure out what is the best way that we could kind of share a lot of this information, both from our internal IT community as well as those that are in leadership in other areas. So what is Power BI? Power BI is essentially a collection of services and apps that Microsoft has made as part of their Power Automate series. What I'm going to be talking about today is primarily the Power BI desktop app and the Power BI service, which is basically web-based. There is a pre-built Jamf Pro integration for Power BI, which we're going to be talking about in depth today. And that is the basic precursor to getting started with Power BI. So again, here's our little workflow here about how this works. There's a Power BI desktop app, which is a Windows-only app, unfortunately. And this is where you're going to be doing most of your work. This is where you're going to be getting your data from Jamf. You're going to then transform that data into something useful, create some visualizations that are relevant to your environment. And then this is where you'll publish it and share it on the Power BI service to those that you want to have see these dashboards or apps or reports. They're used interchangeably in the Power BI universe. So you might hear me call them apps or reports or dashboards. I'm essentially talking about the same thing. So how to get started. With Power BI, what I did was I set up a service account in Jamf that had read requirements or read access to these specific areas. If you don't care about mobile apps, you definitely don't have to check that. In this presentation, I'm going to mostly be talking about Macs. There's no reason why you can't be doing this on iOS. I've done it. If you want reports on iOS devices or mobile devices in your environment, there are certainly ways to do that. So how you get started is to first install the Power BI desktop app from the Microsoft Store from your Windows computer, or in my case, a Windows VM. And then you'll start the Power BI desktop app. The QR code in the lower right-hand corner covers this in immense detail. I highly suggest the series that Jamf has put out. There's 3 different videos that walk you through this process. So I'm not going to cover what's already been covered there. It is in-depth enough to get you started on that. So the next thing we're going to start off with is how to transform this data. You've got the Power BI connector started, and now you're looking to make your visualizations and things that are of interest in your environment. So what you're going to need to do first is to actually shape the data to make it more useful. Almost everything that comes down from Power BI from the Jamf Pro connector that I've found treats everything as a string, or it doesn't expand all the fields that I'm interested in. So there is a little bit of data manipulation that you need to do to make this look a lot nicer and useful for you when you're building visualizations. So the very first thing you'll do is actually click on Transform Data. And I should also note that there will be some load time associated with importing your Jamf data. So you'll see me mention a lot of times, go get a coffee. There's a lot of go get a coffee in the Power BI, especially when you're trying to manipulate data or you've just set a recalculate. So the next thing that you'll need to do is, this is just an overview of the interface. You'll notice that there's queries on the left-hand side. These are kind of your grouping of devices that are in Jamf, or grouping as in organization of how the data is being presented. If you look at the computer's query, and sometimes I refer to this as a table, but in parlance, it's a query. You'll notice that each one of the rows is a computer in your Jamf Pro interface, and that each column is its own inventory item. Please note that this is only a preview of the data set, so you might not see all the computers that are in your Jamf Pro instance. We have at least 5,000 or 6,000 Macs in our interface at any time. So to show in the entire data set is, you don't need to see it essentially for what we're doing here. So if you don't see everything, don't panic. So the next thing that you'll want to do, in my mind, is remove certain fields that we don't care about. So in our environment, we don't use buildings or departments. We don't use things like barcodes. So these are things that I want to basically remove from my interface, so I'm not having to search through a bunch of things I'm never going to care about. A good sense of is if the column is empty, then it's probably something you're not going to care about. So you can go ahead and remove those columns. And then once you're done, you can click OK. You can go back and remove things later on if you miss something. So the next step that I found was that some columns I call a record. I'm not sure if that's the official term, but they have a set of fields within them. So in this example, you can see that there's actually the computer details site actually has more than one field within it. So if you click the little expansion button in the column, you can expand that, and then you'll get access to the entire data within the Power BI visualization reporting side that we'll do later. You might also want to do this for the management status. This is something we use, and expand that. And if you see other ones, go ahead and expand those as well. So, like I said earlier, most of the information that's being presented in Power BI comes in as a string. Power BI, I should mention that BI stands for business intelligence. So a lot of the intelligence side is actually trying to suss out what kind of data that you have. And so when things are coming in as a string, the BI visualization doesn't quite know what to do with it. It treats it like a string, essentially. So in some ways, we want to be able to set certain data types, especially for things that are considering date or time, which a lot of things is what we'd be interested in seeing. So if you right click on a column, you can change the type to date and time, or any other column for that matter. They have binary true false, for example. And when you click on that button, it will take a little time for it to recalculate, and then it will change that icon to a calendar view. So you'll know that it's being formatted as a date and time. So the other thing that I found that was interesting was that not necessarily the information comes down from Jamf might not be exactly useful, or it might be put in a way that I would like to have it a little bit different. So, for example, I wanted a column that specified a major release as Catalina, Big Sur, Mojave, etc. We are given the information as OS version or build number, which you can search on in Power BI, but anybody that sees my comment about regex not supported in BI was probably already guessing that this makes it very difficult to search by OS version. So I want to bypass that and just go ahead and make my own column. So the way that you do that is you can create a custom column. It uses anything from DAX or M formula language. And if you're really interested in that, there's lots of resources out there that talk about how to make M formula language. It's a little bit weird, but if you've done any kind of coding, it's not so bad. From there, you'll go to the computers query and click add a column and then create a custom column. From there, you'll want to name that new column, and then you'll want to insert your code. And the code that I have inserted there is basically a bunch of nested if statements. I know that looks really crappy, but that's just how I had to do it here. I'm sure there's a better way to do this. And this code will be out on my GitHub page that I'll have linked at the end of this presentation. So you'll go ahead and click OK. And if everything looks great, then you'll see your columns fill with that calculated column. Some steps with Query Editor, some tips. If you make a mistake and you're trying to edit something and you really didn't mean to do that, or you made a column and it comes up with a bunch of error messages, you can click the X button next to the step that you just applied. This is the column in the rightmost side of the screen. And if you click the X button, that'll exit out of the last thing you did. Power BI works on a step of queries. It's not really anything's permanent. So if you mess up, you can go back as far as you want, really. The next thing is, if you want to quickly go back to a column, you can select column, go to column. And then that's an easy way to just search for a specific area. Like if you're trying to see if there's specific information in there that you're interested in, that's a quick and easy way to go find that. When you're done with Power Query Editor, you will need to click Close and Apply, and this is going to force a recalculate of all the queries that you've just done or any changes that you've made to the queries inside that, or as I call it, tables. And this is another time for probably another coffee break while everything starts recalculating again. So next, I'm going to move on to some of the visualizations, which is really what most people are interested in. So before I get into the nitty gritty, I need to talk about measures. So measures are something that are useful in visualizations for making counts or sums or averages. For us, I use this to count the number of iMacs we have in our environment, how many Mac Pros we have in our environment, etc. I also use this to calculate the number of Macs we have running Big Sur. You could make counts of specific versions of macOS, etc. I will say the following examples. Shout out to Slingpine there. There's a link. He actually came up with a lot of the DAX formula to make this happen. And honestly, I haven't found a better way to do it. So thanks to him or her. Measures are built off of DAX, like I mentioned. They're calculated when they're actually used in the visualization. This is a little bit different than Power Query, where it's actually doing the computation for you. You can reference measures with other measures, and this is considered best practice. You've already done the calculating. Why not reuse that one so it's not recalculating again? So to create a measure, you'll go to the Home tab. You'll click New Measure. You'll select rename the measure to something else. By default, it's called measure, which can get confusing really quickly. You'll enter in your DAX formula, and you'll click the checkbox, or you'll just click the enter button, and you'll see that measure show up. So, for example, I made a measure that uses the custom calculated column that I made earlier to detect macOS version. And I want to count the number of Macs that are running Catalina or just 10.15. I'm not necessarily caring if they're running 10.15.2, 10.15.6, what have you. I just want to count of all the Macs that we have in our environment running Catalina. And you'll see in the red is where I'm actually putting in my search criteria. The other information is referencing the query. So it's looking at this OS build name, which is what I named my custom calculated column. Here's another one I made for Apple Silicon. So there again, I'm querying the processor architecture, and I'm searching for anything that's ARM64. Want to know how many M1 Macs we've decided to purchase this year. Some tips about measures. I found this out recently myself, actually. You can create all your measures inside another query. So you can have computers, computer applications, computer device groups, and then you can also make your own custom one. So in my examples, I made one called Jamf Measures, and this is where I put all my measures. That way they're not getting all confused everywhere. There's a link below that describes on how to make your own table or query to put all those in. I highly suggest doing that. It makes life so much easier. So the next step with actually getting started with visualizations is to take a look at the Power BI 2 module and make sure that you're following the directions there. There's a lot of good introductory content on how the interface works, much better than what I could talk about in 5 minutes here. So go ahead and check it out. So once you have some visualizations started, just as an example, here's a sample dashboard that I built specifically for JNUC, just to give you an idea of kind of some of the work that you can do here. Again, this will be out here on my GitHub page. And the reason why I made this summarization was to basically showcase off our Jamf environment. I don't know about you, but we have a lot of Windows users on campus, and they might not be as sensitive to the Mac users and understanding what we have on campus. So this is a quick and easy way to show them at a glance, these are the number of devices that we're servicing a month. This is how many Macs we have that are actively checking in. Here's our quantity of desktop Macs as compared to laptops. So this is all useful information. And in the lower right-hand corner, you can actually see that we can sort that by Jamf site. Like I said earlier, sites are very important to us. We have over 50 of them. And sometimes it's easy, or we have a desire to want to search on just a site to understand their particular makeup, especially when questions come in. And we also want to make sure that we're only searching on things that are actively managed. We tend to set Macs that have been off campus or haven't talked to Jamf in a while as unmanaged. And that might be because they're sitting in a closet, or that might be that they've actually departed the university. In some ways, we don't know. But this way, it's easy for us to determine how that's going to work. So here again, why this visualization? Just wanted to show what we kind of have here. You can make multiple pages within the visualization framework. So don't feel like you're constrained to just one page. You can make as many as you want. I think I've made like 15 at some point. And then we want to be able to filter on our site, managed, and then sometimes it might be useful to know how many Silicon Macs we have out there. So how do I do this? The main thing that I learned was using slicers. Slicers is an amazing tool that you should learn how to use, especially if you want to do a lot of filtering on managed or sites or other kind of ideas that you have that may work in your environment. It's a visualization, so all you have to do is click and drag whatever it is that you want into the main report window, and you'll want to select the slicer from the visualization selector, and that's what lets you pick between all those. So a tip when you're using slicers, you'll notice that I had a search button on mine. By default, that's not shown. So that might not be super helpful, especially if you have like 50 things that you're searching on. So if you click on the little 3 dots next to the visualization, you'll get some more options. And one of them is to add a search. And this is what makes that slicer searchable. I found this super helpful. It took me forever to find where that was, by the way. So here's an example of what that looks like when I'm using the slicers in the lower right-hand corner. I wanted to search by a specific site named ITS, specifically Core Plus. And so I have that checked, and then I also have checked the managed. So this is telling me how many Macs I have in this specific site, which in our parlance, a site is usually an academic unit or an administrative unit. So this is a quick way at a glance for a department to understand how many Macs they have in their environment and what OS versions they're running and what kind of models do they support and all the good stuff that people love to see. So another visualization example I have for you is I want a way to search for our Macs that have specific apps. And I don't want to do it like in the normal Jamf way where you have to create a smart group or an advanced search and put in all this crazy criteria and then wait and then export the data. Like I just want to see it. And I might not even necessarily want to do anything with it. I just want to see it. So in this example, I'm filtering by site, and I want to be able to filter by a specific application name, or I might want to also search on the specific version. And I also want to count out of how many Macs have that actual app and version. So here's an example of this visualization search that I've made. It's its own page in PowerBI. And you'll see I've got the filter by site, filter by application name, and filter by the application version. The visual at the top, I'm calling that our model vision. And that will tell me, give me a list of all the computers and the application name and the username and the real name attached with those computers, and as well as the last time that computer checked in. And of course, you can add as many features as you want or don't want. The count in the lower right-hand corner is showing me how many apps are installed across every device on campus. So that's why it's a huge number, 725,000 individual apps installed across our Macs in our environment. So here again, this is how I constructed this search in the main visualization, the one at the top. I'm using stuff from the query called computers, which is probably the one you're going to be working out of the most. And it's called name, site name, username, real name, last contact time. And then for the application side, since they're linked, these queries know how to talk to each other. I can use the application name and version. So again, we're talking about using slicers, same setup. This time we're using a slicer or two slicers from the computer application side of the house. So we can search on that. And then I also have a count in the lower right-hand corner. And a couple of tips with that. It's actually it's called a card visualization. This is super helpful. You'll see that I had those in the summary page as well. So if you see the summary page had a bunch of boxes that had counts of things. This is a really useful tool on just showing a single number. Like here's the big picture of what we've got. If you create that visualization by default, it's going to use the first name. I don't know why that is. It seems kind of silly. But you want to go ahead and select the little drop-down arrow in the visualization box and select count. And that's what's going to give you the actual count of things. So here's me using the visualization with some of the slicers selected. So in this particular example, I wanted to know how many Macs that we have in our environment that have Microsoft Word installed. And then I also went a step further. I wanted to see which Macs had an application version that had 52 in the name. And so, of course, you can check the box. I should also mention that you can multi-select boxes if you want. It's a little bit different depending on if you're actually in a Windows physical computer or VM. Control click, command click, option click, those are all your friends, and you can multi-select things as you want. In the lower right-hand corner, there's that's our total count. So we have 964 Macs that have this particular version of Microsoft Word installed. Some tips about using virtualization or visualizations is you're probably going to want to rename the field. Excuse me. By default, the name is coming in as the actual query name, and in most cases that can be super long. Usually it's something like computer details .disk _ dash encryption blah blah blah. That shows up in the visualization and makes it really difficult to read, at least in my opinion. So you can rename those at any time. Click rename for this visualization. You can provide a new name, and it also changes the title for the visualization. So if you're just trying to play and experiment with some visualizations and not want to see a bunch of name stuff, you can quickly change that, and I highly suggest doing that. Another thing with working with dates. So if you've done everything in Power BI query or Power Query, then you will want to use dates in a lot of your information in your visualizations. Since this is a business intelligence kind of app, it's focused on quarters, years, months, and days. This isn't always what we want. Sometimes it is, depending on the visualization that you're trying to build. But in this particular case, I just want to see the actual date. Like, I don't need to see the quarter that this Mac was last communicated. So you can change the type or how it's displayed by clicking again on that down arrow in the visualization and changing it from date hierarchy to whatever that query name is. You can also export visualizations. So for example, if you want to send a quick report to somebody, you've kind of made this off the cuff report or visualization, you can always export that. If you click on the little three dots in the corner of the visualization, you can do an export data. And this will save it as a CSV, and you can distribute out if there was some issue with a particular version of software that you want to rectify quickly, you could save that as a export and send it off to your team to work on. The important thing to remember with using the visualizations, especially if you're trying to compare and contrast with what's in Jamf currently, is that the data that you're getting from Jamf in BI isn't refreshed automatically. You will have to force a refresh or a manual refresh to get fresh data in. And like I've alluded to, that means coffee time. So if you want to go get coffee, you will need to refresh your data to get that. And to do so, it's in the main home bar, and you'll click refresh. So that kind of wraps up the visualization stuff. I have more examples out on my GitHub page. And there's also a Jamf Nation thread that shows off visualizations. Go nuts. That's how you find out how these things work. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is how to publish and share your dashboards, the reports that you've made, the visualizations that you want to share with your environment. So the first thing that you want to do, or options that you have, is you can just save the PBIX file. This is a local file. It ends in .pbix. You could just share this file with somebody. They might need to reset up the Jamf Pro connector again, or at least sign in with the credentials. But that is an option for sharing. I don't think it's a very exciting way to share, but it is an option. You can also export it from within the Power BI desktop app, either by doing the Power BI template or by doing as an export to PDF. So if you just want to quickly share something with somebody and save it as a PDF, that's a super awesome way to do that. But if you want to make things that are accessible at almost any time to people that you want to have access to your dashboard, you can do that by publishing. And this is where the Power BI service comes into play, where it allows you to share with others on the web. Before you use publish, before you click that button, what I would highly suggest is clear any report settings. This means the slider checks, because as soon as you publish, it's going to keep those. And that can be kind of confusing. So I would highly suggest going through your reports, unclearing anything that you have set. I'd also consider refreshing your data before hitting publish, just so you know the data up there is the latest data that's possible. And as soon as you hit publish, you'll be presented with some prompts to sign in. So in my environment, we have quite a lot of workspaces already developed. You can create a new one specifically for yourself, or you can select an existing one. And once you select that destination, it'll take a little bit of time for it to suck up all that information from your Power BI desktop app into the Power BI service. Go ahead and wait for that success message, and then you can move on. So to access the Power BI service, it's a simple URL to remember, app.powerbi.com. And then depending on your environment, you might have multiple workspaces. Go ahead and find the workspace that you just saved everything to. And you'll see that there's two files in there, report and data set. And from there, you can share your report with others. But as I described later on, this may not be the best option that you'll want to do. So what I would suggest is learning how to create a Power BI app. And an app can be a collection of reports. So if you're using Power BI for other things like Beckham or you have multiple Jamf Pro instances, for example, you can create a collection of reports and dashboards and all this stuff and make it all one big thing. The app term is not like a downloadable app. It is all online. You will need to have someone that is a Power BI designer. This is a person with a Power BI Pro account. So for some of the services within the Power BI service, you do need to have someone with a Pro or Premium account, or you need to be A5 or E5 licensed for Microsoft to make that work. I will say, though, that sharing apps is much easier than sharing reports. Again, my opinion. So take that for what will. Because it's really easy to copy a link and share it with people and go back and change all the permissions. The link below actually references the Microsoft's documentation that talks about how to do this. Again, I'm not going to go through all that because there's a million different options, but it's pretty straightforward, and the documentation there is quite good. So the next thing that you want to do is keep your data current. We've done a lot of work to make these visualizations. It's kind of pointless if it's a snapshot in time. So within the data set window in your workspace, you will find this little folder that's got like a little refresh icon on it. And this is where you can schedule automatic refreshes. The very first thing that you're going to see when you sign into that is that your data source can't be refreshed. It's a big yellow box. It's hard to miss it. You'll click edit credentials, and then this is where you're going to put in your Power BI information that is the account for your Jamf instance in here. And then you'll go ahead and click sign in. And as soon as you do that, hopefully you'll see the message in the lower right that says, yep, I got all my source data updated. Everything's cool. So the next step then is to schedule your refresh data. And from here, you can set what day and the frequency of when you're refreshing your data. I think most people would agree overnight is a great option, so you're not having to waste time on getting that set up. And your Jamf Pro and servers probably isn't super busy at that time. And then you'll want to go ahead and click add another time. Specify the time that you want it to update, and then go ahead and click apply. So with that, thank you for listening to my presentation. Like I alluded to earlier, I've got more information on my GitHub page with some examples for you to look at. And at the bottom, I highly suggest looking at the bottom link to get some inspiration for visualizations that might work for your environment. So thanks for listening.